Welcome to Inside Arvada, the official podcast of the City of Arvada. I'm Sean Starr, one of your hosts. July is Park and Recreation Month in Arvada, so our guest today is the city's Parks Manager, Steve Gustafson. Steve has been with the city since 2017, and he's been in his role as Park Manager since 2019. Prior to Arvada, he worked for the cities of Lakewood and Wheat Ridge. He's been a parks worker really since he could work since he was 16, as we'll find out in the interview. And as always, I'm joined by my co-host today, Katie Patterson. Hi, Katie.
Hey, Sean. Yeah, it was great to have Steve on today. And one thing I really appreciated learning more about, I knew that we partnered closely with Apex Park and Recreation, and we've had Hillary from Apex on before, but I didn't understand really the scope and scale at which we partner and coordinate with them. And that's something that I think confuses our residents sometimes. And so it was great to just hear more about that partnership and the history of the partnership over the last many decades.
Hi, Steve. Welcome to Inside Arvada. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
We're going to switch things up with our listeners. We're going to actually start with the lightning round. So it's a set of questions that we ask all our guests normally at the end of the interview, but we're going to switch it around and do it at the start.
All right.
So first off, what is your favorite thing about Arvada?
Favorite thing about Arvada? There's a lot of things to like about Arvada, so I don't know if I have a particular one thing that's my favorite. I met my wife in Arvada, right? So we got married in Arvada, and we raised our kids in Arvada. So all of our kids went to Arvada High School or Arvada area schools. Our daughter graduated from Arvada High School, boys from Ralston Valley. So raising your family here, you see a lot within the city, right? So we spent a lot of time at our athletic complexes, watching baseball games, lacrosse games, football games, or on the Ralston Creek Trail with cross-country meets, or at golf courses. I grew up playing hockey, so the old North Jeffco Ice Arena, and then our boys played, and so we have the Apex Center. So I think to me it's just Arvada as a whole. Every place that I go within the city brings back something to do with family. So whether it was when I was young or raising our family. So I think obviously the sports complexes mean a lot because we spend a lot of time there. But I think everywhere you kind of find something that brings back a memory, and it's usually a happy memory. So I can't say there's one specific place, but there's a lot of special places. But I think a lot of people probably can find that throughout like our trail system. I remember one time I had a grandpa day with my grandkids, and we were walking through Ralston Valley Park, and there was a brass band playing out of nowhere.
Cool.
Funny Bones or something like that.
Yeah.
And they just happened to be playing on a Sunday morning in the middle of Ralston Valley Park. And I think you find different things like that throughout all of our park system, and I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, great answers, certainly with all the important milestones that you've had here in the city. Next question is, what was your first, best, or last concert?
First, best, and last. Last concert was last Friday, Red Rocks, James Taylor.
All right.
So my wife and I, our whole family, actually were huge James Taylor fans. So if we're in town, when he's in town, we go. So we were there Friday night, and it was a great show.
Nice. What brought you to Arvada? I think you're from the area, but not necessarily exactly in Arvada.
Right. So I grew up in Wheat Ridge, and then I worked for Lakewood for 22 years, and then now I'm with the Arvada. I've been here with Arvada for 8 years now. But like I said, I met my wife in Arvada, and we raised our family here. And working for Lakewood all that time, I always kind of wanted to work and live in the same community. And we really, we planted our roots here in Arvada, and we love Arvada. So when I had the opportunity to kind of jump over here, I couldn't resist, and I haven't looked back. Met some great people here. I remember when I first started working, I was like, that's the job I want to do. I want to be a parks manager somewhere. I said that when I was 16, and the fact that I get to do that now at my age in the city that I live in is just amazing.
That's awesome. Speaking of when you were 16, what was your first job?
First job was working for the city of Wheat Ridge in park maintenance. Finished my sophomore year of high school. The first day of summer break, my older brother said, "What are you doing for a job?" And I said, and he said, "You have an interview tomorrow with the city of Wheat Ridge." So Went in the next day. Gary Wardle was their superintendent. He asked me 4 questions. I botched all 4 of them, couldn't answer any of them, and he said, "Can you start Monday?" And I started that next Monday working at the City Wheat Ridge, and lo and behold, here I am today.
Been a Parks lifer.
Yeah.
Parks lifer.
And then finally, what's your favorite project you've done with the city? I'm sure it's hard to pick.
Boy, yeah, we've done some really neat things. Not only in our parks, in our medians, and the shop that we built, moving from our old shop to the new shop. But I have to say, probably the most rewarding project would be when we took over the athletic field programming from Apex. We found out late in 2021 in the fall that we were going to be taking over the maintenance of the athletic complexes, so like the infields and warning tracks and painting and doing all that stuff. And we had to set up a business plan, we had to hire everybody, and we had to start programming the fields all within about 3 to 4 months.
Wow.
So it was a huge lift that took a ton of help from other departments, including finance and IT and you name it, and fleet, because we had to get vehicles. And we were able to do all that in 3 months and start programming right away. And we didn't know what we didn't know, but we just kind of rolled with it. And now I think we have some of the best athletic complexes in the state. And so that's been a really, really rewarding project that continues today.
I knew it was an important transition. I didn't realize maybe how tight the timeline was in making that happen.
It was a really, really quick turnaround. We were all kind of like, oh boy. But we were able to get it done. Like I said, we had a lot of help, not only from my team, but from other departments, and it's gone really smooth.
That's a great testament to the hard work that you all do, and a good segue to tell us a little bit more about yourself and what exactly do you do here as a parks manager?
So I have been the parks manager here now for, I think, 6 years. Yeah, somewhere right in there. But we have 56 full-time employees that maintain our parks. And when I say maintain our parks, that also means medians and athletic complexes. And we have a cemetery that we maintain. We have the reservoir. We have an indoor and outdoor equestrian center. I mean, it's not just parks, right? We're a lot bigger than that. But so we have 56 full-time employees. In the summer, we'll hire roughly about 60 to 70 seasonal employees, and then on top of that, we'll have about 60 to 70 volunteers out at the reservoir. So during the summer months, we can have roughly 200 people that work for us.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't realize you increased the numbers, and I didn't know there were that many reservoir volunteers. I figured it was like 10 people. That's my misunderstanding. Yeah, that's amazing.
So there's a lot of people there, and then in the winter months, we're taking care of plowing all the trails and the walks, and we have over 150 miles worth of walks that we have to maintain as well. So we got a lot going on year round.
I believe there's over 100 park sites, so not just parks, but like you mentioned, the equestrian centers, and then I think it's I remember 4,200 acres of park trails and open space land throughout the city, so a lot to take care of.
Yeah, there is. There's, like you said, that we're just over 4,200, and that's bluegrass and native grasses. And then, like I said, we do over 150 miles of trails that we maintain, so we definitely keep ourselves busy, that's for sure. And then site-wise, we're over 200 sites, but that also includes our medians as well.
Which a lot of people might not realize is you see those medians, and anytime there's any sort of vegetation, whether trees or grasses, that's parks that's maintaining those.
Yeah, for the most part, there are some medians and probably more streetscape out there that are maintained by business property owners or HOAs. But for the most part, the medians, if they are landscaped, that it's the Parks Department that's maintaining them.
And so we wanted to have you on now because July is Park and Recreation Month. The City Council made it official with a proclamation on July 1st, and we did that in partnership with Apex Park and Recreation District. And so they're our partners, but they're also separate from what we do here at the city. Can you explain to folks kind of the similarities and the differences between us, City of Arvada Parks, and Apex Park and Recreation District?
Sure. So when you think of Apex, the best way to explain that is they're more of like a recreation department. So when I think of Apex, I think of the Apex Center. They have 2 sheets of ice. They have a pool, basketball, water slide, water park. They have Seacrest, the Arvada Tennis Center, the new Arvada Aquatic Center. They run all of those facilities, and then they program those facilities as well. Whereas with parks, you think of everything outside. So we have, like we said, over 200 sites. We have 7 sports complexes. Everything that we do is basically geared towards the recreation part, but is the outside part. Patridge Open Space is one of our most beautiful walks. It's got a really nice soft trail through it out on the western side of town. So areas like that too are also encompassed within our parks.
Yeah, and there's a lot of overlap a lot of times too. Like we'll own a facility and they'll operate out of it. Like Lake Arbor Pool and Recreation Center comes to mind because we're doing a master planning effort right now. But that's a facility the city owns. But then we're not the ones hiring the lifeguards or programming it. Apex is the one that runs the facility on the day to day.
Right, and there's even certain areas within the city. If you look at the field house over by Stinger, we own that property. They own the building, so there are definitely overlaps. And with us owning the field, so to speak, Apex is a priority user group for us. So they will permit, or we will permit a field to them, and then they will run the program. So if you have a kid that's in T-ball, you will sign up through Apex. Pay your fees to Apex, and then Apex will get a hold of us and say, hey, we've got 6 T-ball teams that need 2 fields for this day. We need 60-foot bases or 40-foot bases or whatever they need, and then our team will go out and make sure those fields are ready, prepared for those leagues, whether it's T-ball or adult softball or they do flag football, they do youth soccer, they do a lot of things, and we permit the fields to them.
Yeah, and that's a good question that we didn't maybe have prepared, but we have separate tiers of athletic facilities too that we run. So we've got like our tier ones, like our Stenger and Lutz, and those host big tournaments and big events, and then kind of down to maybe some of the smaller like neighborhood-sized park fields that still get rented out for maybe like youth practices and stuff like that.
Yeah, and typically they'll use some of our tier 2 and tier 3s. Mostly we have our priority user groups will use our tier 1 fields, which are our bigger sports complexes, Stinger, Lutz, Long Lake, those ones. But they will use some of our tier 2s like Westwoods and stuff like that for practices. And then we just built Serenity Ridge, which is a new park, and I know they want to start doing yoga there. That's not something we would necessarily program, but they do actually run programs within some of our other parks as well.
Gotcha. Nice.
And some of that overlap and the close relationship that you're talking about to this day really goes back to all the way from the North Jeffco Rec. I don't know what it was called.
North Jeffco Park and Recreation, I think
district,
what it was, district.
And that's kind of transitioned from that model of them kind of maybe doing more of the open park stuff to the city taking that on. Is that right?
Right. So back in the day, I want to say it was like in the mid 50s, I think it was, North Jeffco Park and Rec or Metro, whatever they called it.
Yeah.
That's kind of when they started up. And then, so they were doing parks and they were doing rec center. They were doing everything at that point. And then, in the late 80s, the city of Arvada kind of took over their park maintenance part of it. And so the employees from North Jeffco at that time came over to the city of Arvada, and both of their parks funds were combined to make one parks fund within the city of Arvada. And all those employees came over and started working for the city itself. So there's definitely been some crossover back and forth. And like I said, at one time they programmed the fields, and now we program the fields. At one time, we took care of the splash pad at Ralston Central, but they've said, hey, we're the aquatics experts. We should take that over. So now they are doing the splash pad at Ralston Central. So there's definitely some crossover between us and definitely some communication between the both of us.
Yeah.
Collaboration.
I believe you have still a few employees on staff who were part of that transition back, 20, 30 years ago.
We have, I think, we're down to one left,
Yeah.
I believe, yeah.
John,
Yep.
Kalista, yeah. Speaking of funding, where does your department get its funding from?
So we get basically about half of our funding from Jeffco Open Space. So back in '72, the voters passed a 0.5% sales tax on all goods purchased within Jefferson County. And so the business owners collect that tax. They send it to Jeffco Open Space, who in return send roughly 30% of that. They have a calculation, but it's roughly 30% of that back to us for our parks fund and our parks operation. This past year, that was right around $7 million. And then Jeffco Open Space keeps the rest of that, and they use that for their operations, for obtaining new lands, for helping us obtain new properties as well, and some of the bigger projects that go on between the both of us.
Yeah, I feel like that's unique compared to maybe some other departments that are more generally funded, and then we've obviously got our enterprise funds like our water, our wastewater, and our golf and restaurants. So half comes from Jeffco Open Space sales tax, and then the other half is general fund.
And then the other half, will come from general fund, and so that's when it gets down to funding and priorities throughout the city, where our leadership team and council will decide that is a bigger priority. Sorry, you don't get as much this year, or maybe parks is a priority and they'll get a little bit more. But we get roughly 50% from Jeffco Open Space, and then 50% from the general fund. And then Apex is funded differently because they're funded through property tax, and then they're also funded through the services that they provide. So if you pay for a T-ball league to get your kid in T-ball, or you rent a pickleball court up at Sim Street, they also use that revenue or they also get that revenue as well.
Mm-hmm. And you can go on the Jeffco Property Search and find your property if you're a homeowner, and you can see exactly how much you pay out to Apex and the schools and all those other districts.
Yeah, and funding's always a big part of the challenge of keeping up with all of our parks and open spaces and fields. What are maybe some of the other things that you all are facing now, and challenges you're looking to address?
So some of the big things that are kind of on our some are here right now, so I shouldn't say on the horizon. One of the big things is the emerald ash borer, which has been, we definitely have it on the east side of town, but it's slowly moving west, and it started out in the Midwest and in Michigan and has slowly moved this way. Unless your trees are being treated, your ash trees, they're going to die in a few years, and that's just the bottom line to it. So we're treating roughly 700 ash trees that the city owns currently, and that runs us, roughly $35,000 to $50,000 a year. So that's an expense, and then when the trees die, we have to replace those trees as well. So that's always just kind of a revolving door and an added expense that we have. The other thing is that, or another thing we see in the future is the cost of water goes up, and even though we're part of the city, we do pay for water. So our water bill goes up too. I think last year we spent close to $800,000 on water. That's a big expense for us. So you'll see we're slowly starting to move, not only because of environmental factors, but also because of budgeting. We're starting to turn more areas into native areas, which is better for the environment too, because we don't mow them as often. If we do mow them, we don't use nearly as many pesticides. Not that we use a lot to begin with, but those areas, if they're allowed to flourish, they reproduce on their own with seed, and so we don't have to do a lot of management with weed management because of that. So those are a couple things that are on the horizon.
Yeah, and we did, I think, include it in the most recent community survey of like how do folks feel about this conversion from that highly maintained turf grass to this native grass, and I think, if I remember correctly, about 2/3 are in favor of it. So that's good to know as we continue to maybe expand into converting more areas of that turf grass into that native grass for a lot of different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think another one people might be interested to know, I wouldn't know this if I didn't work at the city, is the state law was passed recently that you all just did a really big overhaul to convert to electric maintenance equipment. And so can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, that's another one too. That's I'm glad you brought that up. So Resolution 29 is a state resolution that says any city using landscape equipment, which includes push mowers, weed ease, chainsaws, anything that is under 10 horsepower from June through the end of August has to use battery operated. They cannot use gas powered equipment. So that has been, this is our first year at it, and so it's
Yeah.
something new for us. Most of our staff really enjoy using the battery operated equipment because it is quieter, and there's not the emissions. You don't have that humming in your ear the whole time running a weedie. We are finding that the batteries don't last as long as we hoped they would last, so we're investing more money into batteries too. But we basically have to have two sets of landscape equipment, ones we can use outside of that time, and then the battery operated ones that we use during the summer months, although we're using more just battery most of the time. But we've invested roughly $150,000 in the past 2 years just purchasing that equipment.
Wow.
And then finally, as we wrap up, we like to ask all our guests if there's any misinformation or misconceptions about the work that you do that you'd like to clear up. So the time is now, Steve, to set the record straight.
Like I said, a couple of things that I think of is most people probably don't know that we have a water bill as well.
Yeah.
That's probably news to them. So when water rates go up, they go up for us too. But I think that with rates going up, it makes people more aware of it, that we need to do a better job of not using and consuming as much water. So that's something that we're trying to be better at. And we actually have although Joe Kunze will tell you his computerized irrigation system is much smarter than ours.
Yeah.
His maybe gets an A+ and ours gets an A. Ours is pretty smart too.
Yeah.
So when it does rain, we have ours set at roughly 1/10 of an inch. When we hit 1/10 of an inch in different quadrants within the city, we have weather stations that will inform our irrigation controllers not to water. If the wind hits a certain wind speed, it can tell them not to water as well. So we're doing as much as we can to conserve on water. And I know a lot of people think, well, you're always watering at this time. That's when I walk. Well, we have a very small window when we can water our parks. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, it's typically 11 o'clock at night until about 6 in the morning. So if you walk your dog somewhere between that time, there might be water on. But we don't do it just to bother people.
And then bathrooms, I know, is a big topic among our community. And we have some portalets seasonally, and we have some permanent bathrooms year-round. But why can't we have them in all our parks, all 100 parks throughout the whole city?
It has to do with infrastructure, and we don't have the money to put water taps in or a sewer connection, because you have to have that in order to have bathrooms, and we just don't have the infrastructure to do that right now, and it's not cheap to do that. If you're building a new park, 3-inch water meter can cost you up to $1 million or more. So, we pay that amount too. So the infrastructure is just not there to do it. We have it at our larger sports complexes. We do try to provide portalets. I know people don't enjoy using those all the time, but we at least do try to provide those for people when we can.
All right. Well, thanks for clearing that up, and thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Steve.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
As a reminder, we love to hear from our listeners. You can stay in touch by texting us with the link at the top of each episode. You can also send us an email at podcastarvada.org. We love to hear feedback from what our listeners enjoy and what they want to maybe see differently, or episode ideas and more. And some news and events coming up. Our Movies Around Town series continues Friday, July 18th with a free showing of Beetlejuice at Michael Northey Park. The movie begins around dusk at about 8:45 p.m. There'll be live music before that. And we also have our People's Choice movie poll going on now, so you can vote which movie you want to see in the final Movies Around Town event on August 29th at Clear Creek Valley Park. You can go to arvadaco.gov/movies to view the entire schedule and to vote in the movie poll. As Steve Gustafson mentioned, emerald ash borer is an invasive pest that is spreading throughout the city, and so we encourage all residents to take a look at the trees they have on city property, and if you have an ash tree, take action. Even if it's not infected with EAB, it is subject to the EAB, and so you need to mitigate that and treat your trees. And so we'll have a webpage, arvadaco.gov/EAB, where you can learn more about how to identify ash trees and what steps you can take if you have them on your property.
And they should be looking at the trees on their property. The city looks at the trees on our property. I think
Yes.
you said that wrong.
Oh, absolutely.
You're
Yeah,
good.
we can't treat private property trees. We treat our own. We have a huge plan for that, but good point.
Yes, do the ones on your property. And then also, there's been a lot of reports lately of dirt bikes and other motorized vehicles on our trails and in parks, and that goes against the city's municipal code. And so, just a reminder to please only use non-motorized vehicles, I don't know, non-motorized bikes and things on trails. And that does include that you can have class 1 and 2 e-bikes are allowed on trails, but not class 3 because those go too fast. So for more information, you can visit arvadaco.gov/trail-etiquette. And then the city also offers each year a tax rebate for qualifying Arvada residents. And so there's more information about the residency and maximum income requirements for that online. And there's also an application and more information about how to contact the city if that's something that you or someone you know may qualify for. And so visit arvadaco.gov/tax rebate for that information. And thanks again to our guest, Steve Gustafson, today. It was great to have him on. Be sure to listen to our next episode with Judge Catherine Kurtz. And as always, today's episode was recorded and edited by Arvada Media Services.
And today's fun fact, that was in 1974, Arvada residents passed a $7 million bond issue to build 32 neighborhood parks, some of which include Majestic View, Alice Suite, Danny Kendrick East and West, Davis Lane, and many others. And that amount of $7 million back then is equivalent to about $47 million today.
Whoa.